Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy Simmons, and I'm also a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And we also have a finance ministry. How many of you know people whose finances were affected as a result of the pandemic? Yeah, I think we all do. I think we could all raise our own hands as well with the inflation and the increase of cost of goods. So we've got a magnificent finance ministry to help you make sure that your finances are in order. So we've got a really great presentation coming up also this afternoon, and it is entitled Lazy Money. How many of you know what lazy money is? Does anybody have any idea what lazy money is? I'm just going to ask a couple of you and see what your answers would be. Do you know what lazy money is?
Is it money that you invest and it just works for you?
Okay, that's an answer. All right, Austin, what's lazy money?
Money that does nothing.
Okay, all right.
Money under the bed.
What was that?
Money you have sitting in the bank.
Excellent answer.
I have money under the bed.
Money under the bed. Okay, all right. You all had really great answers. And Lyndon is going to speak with us about lazy money and what to do with lazy money, even in the markets like we're experiencing today. So also, I handed out a couple of things. I handed out an evaluation form. At the end of the presentation, we're going to collect these evaluation forms. So we want you to evaluate the program today. Let us know what you think about this presentation, what we could do to improve this presentation. So we're going to pick that up, and then we also handed out a flyer. Our finance ministry is also having another financial seminar. We've got quarterly financial seminars that we do at the Farmington Seventh-day Adventist Church. And our next financial seminar is going to be Thursday, November 10th at the Hawk at the Farmington Hills Community Center. So we want you guys to take flyers, invite your friends and families so that we can get our finances back in order, all right? Because we were all affected some way, somehow by this pandemic. All right, getting on to our presentation entitled Three Buckets and Lazy Money. Sorry about that. Our speaker, Mr. Lyndon Davis, has over 10 years experience as a financial advisor. Lyndon has much expertise to help clients achieve financial confidence. He works closely with families and individuals to develop tailored wealth management strategies that take into account their risk tolerance, their time horizon, as well as their personal and financial goals. Knowledgeable and trustworthy, he utilizes all resources available to him to ensure each client receives first-class financial service, making the necessary adjustments to their plan as their life evolves. Before his current role as a financial advisor, Lyndon spent 16 plus years as an engineer for 2 Fortune 500 companies. He earned a bachelor's degree from Polytechnic University in Brooklyn, New York, and a master's degree from the University of Michigan. Lyndon is a member of the Farmington Seventh-day Adventist Church, and he volunteers with several community organizations in the area. Originally from Trinidad, West Indies, he lives with his family and 2 sons.
That's all.
So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Lyndon Davis.
Okay. Can you all hear me all right? Lazy money business. And then a follow-up question is, before we get into that, let's talk about some behavior. We're going to look to follow the 80. Well, is behavior 20 about your behavior to get in the way to your goal. Huh? You chase that girl for 5, but there's also a benefit. And of course, the candy method. You know what? And we want to make thing when it comes to money. So, are you? Where are you? Apps or reality? Are you actually obedient while all the while you are drowning in, while living from paycheck to paycheck, hand, because it lets you get away okay. It lets you get away with spending just a little bit too. Your state? Yeah. I mean, there's a line going out the door. Middling. Enemy of enthusiasm. Enemy of love is we don't know. So now, idea. Okay, where's money? How? Why? You're 40 and retired. I'm going to ask, why do you work? Or, why do you work? Why? Why do you work? I love to go on vacation. Why do you work? Why? I submit to you that you work, or you did work, so that your money can go into 3 buckets. Let's call them bucket number 1, bucket number 2, and how about we call the third one? How about bucket number 3? You worked so that your money would go into 3 buckets. Let's take a look at bucket number 1. Bucket number 1 are things that are consumed. What are some things that are consumed? That's right, y'all got that down. Food, gas, trips, vacations, right? Gifts. Those things. Because folks, once you take a trip, it's not like you can take the result, stick it in your pocket, and save it for later. Same thing with food. Things that are consumed have little to no value after they're used. Do you all understand that? That's things that are. What do you think that is? Huh? It's things that depreciate. What does depreciate mean? It goes down in value. That's what are some examples? Everybody knows that one, right? Cars and furniture and clothing and a whole bunch of they go down in value. Folks, before I go on, I'm going to say over 90% of the average American money go into bucket 1 and 2. Things that are used up and have no value, and things that go down in value. Why do you work? Folks, at the creation, God created people to work. Before there was sin, before free. There will be work. There's going to be. So between creation, where for our good, where all this space between where work has to be done. And for whatever it might be to you, there's one thing that we're sure of is work is laborious. Huh? Many of you actually say, I am glad. Where did that TGIF come from? I mean, they didn't say TGIM, right? TGIF, because they're happy. Work is over. I can rest. In between creation and heaven, we have to work, and it's going to be laborious. So what are you doing with the money you work for? Putting it into things that are consumed and go down in value? Is that what you want? Let's look at bucket number 3. What do you think bucket number 3 is? Ha! You knew that. Y'all saw the slides ahead of time. That's right. Things that appreciate. Appreciate means it goes up in value. What are some things that go up in value? Well, we hope. Yes, your home goes up in value most of the time. Your stocks, your bonds, your portfolio, all of those things, rare earth elements, all of those things tend to go up in value. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to sound controversial, but you will see that it is borne out by your own experience. A friend of mine told me this almost 30 years ago. He said, Lyndon, if you look at poor people, they show their wealth on their person. I thought he was a little off, but after he said it, I started thinking. Growing up in the Bronx and Flushing, it used to trip me out that people I knew to be on welfare. It wasn't a question. I knew they were on welfare. And they had the latest fashion, the latest sneakers. I mean, jeans that are pressed that you could cut yourself in the crease. Gold going up one arm and coming down the other. And that's because that's all they had. They show their wealth in their person. And then he went on to say, Lyndon, if you look at middle class people, they show their wealth in their. I remember the first time I walked in, I grew up poor. I did. How poor? I grew up cardboard poor. Cardboard poor is you wear your sneakers down so far that you cannot afford to buy new ones. Huh? You stick cardboard in the hole and you keep on playing basketball. Yeah, I grew up cardboard. I'm the only one? I guess I am. First time I went into a middle class home, I near broke my ankle because the carpet was so plush. Thick, lovely, sleep on it. Just dream on the carpet. Marble countertops, thick drapes. I'm not talking, Motel 6. I'm talking thick drapes, embroidered drapes. In their homes, they show their wealth. And where else? In their leisure. I mean, truly, I'm in this business over 16 years now, and it still trips me out that people go ape nuts just to get out and spend $20 each round on golf. Folks, if you do that every day, that's $100 a week just on golf. Almost $500 a month just on golf. But that's what middle class people do. They show it in their leisure. On vacation, we used to go to the backyard. Where do middle class people go on vacation? Europe, West Indies, Florida, Disney. Their home and in their leisure. And if you look at rich people, and this one tripped me out, if you look at rich people, they do everything under the sun to hide their wealth. They tell the IRS, I'm poor. I owe no taxes. I didn't make anything last year. Huh? Isn't that what goes down? The homes are pushed far back from the street. You got to climb the fence and push just to see what the home looks like. That's what rich people do. They hide the wealth from you, me, but their friends know they're wealthy. They go to the black tie galas. They go to the big cotillion and balls and all that other shit. You and I are not there, but their other friends are there. Poor people show their wealth on their person. Middle class people show their wealth in their homes and their leisure. Rich people do everything they can to hide their wealth. Do you know what else rich people do? Folks, they spend the greater portion in bucket 3. The greater portion of their assets is in bucket number 3. Bucket number 3, folks, is where Jesus commended those 2 servants. Remember those 2 servants? He gave them all talents. He gave one 5 talents, another 2 talents. Remember that? Bucket number 3 is where he commended them. Because what did he say? Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Right? You've been faithful over a few, I'm going to make you rule over many. I took your 5 and I made another 5. That's bucket 3 living, folks. You gave me 2 and I made another 2. That's bucket 3 living. Bucket 3 is where Jesus commended the servants in Matthew 25. Bucket 3 is where we provide for ourselves and others. Make no mistake. If you're living in bucket 1 and bucket 2, you cannot but help but provide for yourself because there's nothing to give to anyone else. Are you all understanding that? If you're in 1 and 2, you can only do for yourself. You cannot help materially anyone else. Bucket 3 is where we get to help others and to help them in a big, big way. Bucket 3 is where we get to fire, fire our employer and fire our lifestyle. Fire financial independence, retire early. For those of you that are already tired, great that you fired your employer. Good for you. But bucket 3, loans. Where am I putting money? I got to pay them things. Did not hear it until then. But again, the rich, bucket 3 living people, they're telling their kids that from young. They're making their kids young. And I'm going to say it again. That's where Jesus commended those 2 servants for living. Bucket 3 living. Folks, where are you spending the money God has entrusted to you? In what buckets are you putting what God has put in your hand? Well, before we get to that, let's look at some pillars of wealth. Wealth, I know it's like a dirty word among Christians. Nobody wants to be, everybody's happy to be poor, except when they complain to their neighbor that they're poor. Wealth is the abundance of valuable possessions, including money. Wealth itself is morally neutral. Do you all understand that? Wealth is morally neutral. It could either enhance good or it can create more evil. If God spares your life and my life, if he extends his grace, wealth is the natural conclusion of following biblical principles. What? Yeah. Wealth is the natural conclusion of following biblical principles. What do I mean? Folks, you take a seed. Huh? You put it into the ground. What? You put some water on it. Huh? And what happens in time? The only thing you can do to stop that thing from growing is what? Yeah, you got to dig it up, or some animals got to dig it up. You've got to interfere somehow. The natural conclusion of seeding, cultivating, and watering is a plant that grows. The natural conclusion of following is wealth. I am not preaching a prosperity gospel. Follow Jesus and you can be rich like me. I'm not. In case anybody had that in their mind, I'm not. But I'm not preaching that mess. I am not teaching follow Jesus and be rich. I'm saying follow biblical principles, even if you can't stand Jesus. Do you all understand what I just said there? Even if you don't know who Jesus is, even if you want to stick it to him and twist the knife in his back, if you follow the principles he put in his book, wealth is the natural outcome. God cannot. He just can't. He says this will follow. Folks, that's what's going to happen. It will follow. That is not to be your motivation for following Christ. Can I say that again? It is not your motivation for following Christ is to be rich. But being that you're here and you're trying to understand 3 buckets and lazy money, understand following biblical principles, the natural outcome is that you will have wealth. So now, what are those? Well, the first of those pillars is income. You must have some income somewhere. The second is savings. And the third is investing. Now, some of you are sitting there saying, dude has lost it. What does he mean that you have to have income and all of that? There are people who are born rich. No. None of us are born rich. We are all born poor. All of us come to the world with? Nothing. But what about Bill Gates' kids? What about Jeff Bezos' children? They came into the world rich. No. They came in just as poor as you and I. They have to wait for somebody to give it to them when they get of age. And if that person doesn't give it to them, they're just as poor as you and I. Every one of us comes into the world poor. And then through biblical principles, we get our way to a little bit more wealth. Or by foolish, riotous living, we keep ourselves poor. We don't make ourselves poor. We keep ourselves poor. We come into the world with nothing, and we're going to leave with nothing. So these are the pillars of wealth: income, savings, and investment. You need all 3 in order to get there. So let's look at some biblical texts. Income. In Proverbs it says, don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. Be wise enough to know when to quit. You ever heard that statement, quit while you're ahead? Never understood that. If I'm ahead, I'm going to keep running. Why quit? He might pass shooting 3s until the game's over. Then I stop. But when it comes to life, the word is saying, quit when you're ahead. You've had enough. Don't wear yourself out. It also says, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first of all you produce. Production is income. Proverbs 21, the wise saves for the future, but the foolish man spends whatever he gets. Corinthians, on the first day of the week, yes, you all know that verse, let everybody save something up so that there'll be no gathering. Whatever the purpose was for that savings is not the issue. The point was you were commanded to save. You were instructed to save. And then good old investment. Does the Bible talk about investment? Do you think? Yeah. Talks about investment. Check out this verse. There's one who scatters and yet increases more. Think about that. That's investing. One who scatters puts it out there and yet they get back more from scattering. How about this one? Whosoever sows sparingly shall reap sparingly. So myself and Wendy, could you raise your hand, Wendy? Myself and Wendy, we're financial advisors. And one of the things that tickles our belly to ultimate laughter is the person that comes into us and says, I want to double my money overnight with no risk. Some of you get it. The rest of y'all don't know what I'm talking about. You cannot sow sparingly. You can't dig in the earth and put the money and then say, I'm looking for a doubling and tripling. If you sow sparingly, you're going to reap sparingly. If you sow abundantly, you will reap abundantly. That's investing, folks. The next slide is going to show we're not going to get into any of these. It's just various types of investing. I put it there just so that you can make yourself familiar with the different forms of investing. We can talk about those things later. Now, folks, now that you have gathered, you've sown, you've cultivated, you've watered, and now you have something that you've produced. You have a little bit of wealth. You now need to protect that wealth. That's where insurance comes from. Does the Bible talk about insurance? You see the verse. It is the most tacit endorsement of insurance you'll find in the Bible. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, even 8, because you do not know what disaster. Folks, that word disaster, that's what insurance is there for. It's to guard against disaster. You and I don't have the capital to say that we're going to throw $500,000 or $1 million if we get into an accident. You all drive. If you get into an accident, someone might sue you for $1 million. Do you have it to just give over to them? That's disaster. And that's what insurance was meant to protect against. The Bible is really solid when it comes down to teaching us principles by which we can gain an income, invest it wisely, and then also protect it. I'm not going to get into all of them, but this is just some of the things that you should be considering when you think about insurance. Life insurance, disability insurance, and umbrella insurance. Send in a question on the website, or send in a question on your evaluation forms. We can talk more about them. But these are just some things that you want to be cognizant of. Now, while many people are very cool on the life insurance part, people often forget the coverage for disability. Most companies out there considers pregnancy a form of disability. Why? Because typically at some point you can't work. You all understand that? Who does not understand that? No, I'm not here saying that because you're pregnant, you're a disabled person. No, I'm saying that when certain women get to a point, pregnant women get to a point, they cannot work. And even for some time after that. And companies actually allow for disability income, for disability pay during that time. I'm mentioning it to you now so that you, if that's going to be you, that you can actually start taking advantage of the benefits that are available to you. And then umbrella is a different thing. It covers you for a wide assortment of things. Again, talk to me about that later on. The next thing that you want to consider is estate planning. People hate this. Do you know why they hate this? That's right. They say, if I start planning my estate, that means I'm going to die. Do you know what message I have for them? You're going to die anyway. So you might as well make a good plan. Estate planning is a proper way of taking care of God's business and your business. The Bible tells us that parents ought to lay up for, come on, work with me here. Parents ought to lay up for children and not children for the parents. An estate plan is an effective way of making sure that you are laying up for the next generation and for God's business. Minimum things that you want to have in that is a will and a trust. Folks, do not be scared. If you do not have a will, Governor Whitmer has one for you. Do not be perturbed. A will is already set by the state for those of you that do not have one. But God is telling you, folks, the Old and New Testament actually is a form of a will. It's a form of an estate plan. The Bible even says that no testament is secure unless the person first dies. And then what's there is actually put into effect. Having an estate plan is an effective way of protecting the next generation, as well as preparing for or continuing to move God's kingdom forward. A healthcare proxy, one of the last things that you want, folks, is that you are in a dire situation and your loved ones are fighting over what to do. He owes me $10,000. We should pull the plug. You don't want that. Do you? You don't want that. Or, I just want another day with her. We should keep the plug in. And yeah, you have two people fighting one another. What to do with mom or grandmom or dad or whomever. Folks, don't do that to your folks. Have a healthcare proxy designated so that there's no fighting among anyone. And then lastly, a power of attorney. When you get to the point where you may not be able to act for yourself, it is okay. We as Jesus' disciples are somewhat of a power of attorney for him. Remember what he said before he left? He said, listen, I am going to give you authority. Whatever you bind on is bound in. Yeah, Jesus gave us a proxy. He gave us a power of attorney while he's off preparing a place for us. We need to use that power of attorney wisely by telling people how to deal better with the money that God has put into their hands, by dealing better with the money that God has put into our hands. Folks, what you have just seen is the 20%. You've just gotten information. The 80% is where the action is at. Without the application of what you just saw, you get stuck in an infancy mode of dealing with money. You become too immature to actually take an action with what you've been taught. And therefore, it becomes baby money. You're too immature with what you have. Or worse yet, some are so undisciplined that they work for money that has no job and has no purpose. What's a job? What's a job? A job is a task that's assigned for someone to do. So a job might be pick up that chair and stack them. That could be a job, right? A definite task that is given. But folks, what's a purpose? What is a purpose? I submit to you, a purpose is where you are set aside to do something, but you're not called on to do anything. This is the ultimate example of purpose. What is the purpose? That's the job. What's the purpose? The purpose is to be ready. Sit right there on the kitchen counter. I don't want you to move. I don't want you to fizz out. I don't want you to do anything. I want you to sit on the kitchen counter in case there's a fire. All the while, you are hoping, wishing, and praying that it never gets a job. Because if it has a job, that means there's a fire. The ultimate purpose is a fire extinguisher. We want it to just sit there in case something happens, but we never want to use it. A job is a specific task that you do. A purpose is lying in wait for a task. If your money has no job, if your money has no purpose, your money is lazy. Now you know. Now you know. If it has no job and it has no purpose, you've got lazy money. And lazy money gets wasted. Lazy money gets wasted. What do I mean? Well, think you have a bill in your pocket or your purse, and you're going to the checkout line at Meijer, and they just happen to have chips, and you are starving. That $5 had no job. It was just laying around, lounging in its lounge chair, just laying around. No job, no purpose. What do you do with that $5? What do you do? Oh no, you buy 5 bags of chips because you know you just can't stop with one, and you've wasted that money. Similarly, when you go to the movies or when you go out on vacation, instead of actually telling your money, this is what we're going to spend on vacation, you just bring that blank checkbook or that debit and credit card, and next thing you know, you got to work overtime because you wasted money that had no job and no purpose. The reason why this is so prevalent is because we don't identify with bosses. Well, most of us. I know Julie's a project manager. She kicks people around all the time. Tell them what to do. Come on, get out of here. But most of us, we're not bosses, but we all have been employees. And we get indoctrinated with that employee mindset. What do I mean? 100 years ago or so, 80% of the population in the United States worked for themselves. Of those in the United States work for someone else. We have an employee mentality. And how does that employee mentality work? It's almost like church offices, right? Oh, I should have been choir director. That sister can't even sing. Why is she choir director? Well, I should have been head deacon. I lock up. We get on like employees instead of being happy. We should have got. Think about it. When somebody gets a promotion, that should have gone to you. You're mad. You start calling the boss every name except a child of God because you have an employee mentality. A boss mentality says, I will put the employee to work. They can be more productive for the company. An employee mentality says, I want to get more for myself. What happens to the company? And when we have money in our hands, we treat it like a coworker. Money? How come you didn't keep me on vacation for another 3 days? You get upset with your money. Money? Why is it that you didn't get me into that high-rise condo? Why is it that I'm stuck in this bungalow in Farmington? You treat your money like a coworker, getting upset you. Treat your money like a boss. Treat your money like a boss. The Bible tells us lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands brings wealth. I say lazy but diligent money brings wealth. Make your money work. Be the boss of your money. How? Pay for my gas. Pay off the mortgage. ASAP. And why not take care of tuition, room, and board? Let's not even leave board off. Let's pay for that too. And why not decorate my home and garden? And fetch, here boy, fetch me some dinner. Tell your money, fetch you some dinner. And why not take me on that overseas mission trip? This is all and more. Jobs that you can give your money when you treat it like an employee and that you are the boss. Telling your money what it is that you want it to do. Isaiah 55 and verse 2 says, why spend your money on food that does not give you strength? Why pay for food that does no good? Listen to me and you will eat what is good. You will enjoy the finest food. Isaiah is telling you, make your money work. Put your money to work. Because we all know this truism. You cannot stop working for your money until your money starts working for you. It just can't happen. Remember those 3 buckets we talked about? Remember those 3 buckets? Bucket number 1 is things that are consumed. Bucket number 2 is things that depreciate. And bucket number 3 is things that appreciate. Folks, you can have lazy money in all 3 buckets. What? You can have lazy money in all 3 buckets. What do you mean? Well, you fully understand bucket 1 and 2, how money could be lazy in those buckets, right? Things that are consumed and things that go down in value. That's really, but how can I have lazy money if my money is going up in value? See, there's this thing called taxes. Did you all hear about that guy? Y'all heard about him? Taxes. You've heard of him, no? He's a good, close, personal friend of mine. I see him every month. And then June sees him 3-4 times a week every time she goes to the grocery store. Just because your money's going up doesn't mean that it's working efficiently. Taxes are due. And if you don't do your money properly, you can end up paying more tax than you need to. Lazy money can be in all three buckets, folks. Don't get giddy by saying, well, I'm an investor. I have money in stocks. Or I'm a real estate investor. I buy homes and flip them and sell. No, you can have lazy money in all three. So we here seek to educate against baby money and to militate against lazy money. We want to tell lazy money, get to work. Lazy money, get to work. And when it's working, you should have it spend most of its time in bucket number 3. In bucket number 3. We need to live in bucket number 1. We can't get around that. We must, by and large, I mean, if anyone wants to join me in my campaign for going naked. Yeah, I didn't think so. So yeah, we do kind of need clothes then, huh? So we need bucket number 2, right? So we can't get around those. But folks, make sure that you are bucket 3 living. Now I'm about to say something that sounds like I am being contradictory. Folks, what's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with that picture? Got the wrong people doing the wrong job? What's going on there? You got surgeons working on an engine. Doctors trying to be mechanics. And Julie said it best. This is what we call the right people working the wrong job. Got the right people working the wrong job. And just because your money is working, God has given it to you, you're buying food, you're buying clothing, you're going on trips, you're investing. Just because your money is working does not mean it's working on the right job. What do I mean? I mean, think about it. Taking the kids' tuition to help a friend pay a bill. That makes sense? Taking your retirement money to buy a car. Do you know the silliness of that? You're taking money that's growing to put it into something that's going to go down in value. You're taking tomorrow's money to take care of today's expense. Taking tithe money to go on vacation. That money is working, isn't it? That tithe money is working, isn't it? Huh? Somebody talk to me. Is that tithe money working? Is it working the right job? Just because your money is working does not mean it's working the right job. So you need to make sure not only that you're bucket 3 living, but you're bucket 3 living in the right job. Bucket 3 living in the right job, and make sure it's not lazy even in bucket 3. Well, here we come, where your financial advisor, your presenter, has told a white lie. You know what a white lie is, right? It's like a lie, but it's not really a lie. But it is a lie, but it's not. But it is. I told you there were 3 pillars of wealth. There's actually 4. And I told you there were 3 buckets. Yeah, there's actually 4. You need these 3 pillars. You can't get out of it. You need them. But number 4 is where the action is at. Bucket 3 living is where Jesus commended those 2 servants in Matthew 25. And it is exactly that same bucket where Jesus condemned the rich man in the book of Luke. Remember that rich man? Oh, soul, what shall I do? I have abundance, I have goods. What shall I do? I know what I shall do. I shall rip down my barns. I will build bigger barns. I will gather in and I will say, soul, you have enough goods. Eat, drink, be merry. And you did not know your soul would be required of you this night. Bucket 3 is where Jesus condemned that person. Why? Because they didn't have that fourth pillar. All that we've been talking about, bucket 3 living, 3 buckets that you put your money in and so forth, you got to engage this part. That's where the action's at. And nobody sit and think that because someone may have abundance, that means that giving is any less sacrificial. Folks, think about it. Let's think about it. Was Job's offering any less meaningful because he had abundance? Huh? Was Cain's offering more meaningful because he had abundance? No, in fact, God actually kind of condemned Cain for what he did. Giving is not a matter of what you have. It's a matter of how you give. Are you giving from the heart, or are you giving to be noticed? Are you giving out of gratitude, or are you giving out of platitudes, wanting someone to tell you how wonderful you are? So even in this area here, we need to be careful in how you give. And that's where the invisible fourth bucket comes in. What's in that fourth bucket? Folks, it's eternal values. Eternal values that deal with things like education, arts and literature, local and world charities, a character of love. There's no amount of money that can satisfy these things. And here's the kicker. That bucket never gets filled and it never gets emptied. It's always receiving and it's always giving. Eternal values, a character of love. This, after all is said and done, is why we're here. There's only 2 things, folks, you will ultimately do with your money. Let me see if anybody knows what those 2 things are. 2 things. There's only 2 things that you will ultimately ever do with your money. Yes, sir. Spend it and? Yeah. You will either spend money or you will give it away. But I have millions saved up. When you die, you're going to give it away. Do you understand that? Ultimately, you will either spend it or give it away. Someone said years ago, and I will repeat it today, he who gives while he lives also knows where it goes. Give while you have the opportunity, because I promise you, if you're not bucket 3 living, if you're not doing a proper insurance and estate planning, you may end up giving that money ultimately to someone you don't even like. So folks, we have come to the end of that corner of questions and answers. Do you see yourself as the boss, where money is your servant, your employee? Or do you see yourself as the employee, where money is your master? Do you see your money working for you? Or do you see money spending an inordinate amount of time in bucket 1 and bucket number 2? Do you even have a plan for bucket number 3? Do you have a commitment to even look at bucket number 4? Folks, what do you see? Do you see abject, absolute really, fantasy? Is that what you're seeing when you're looking at your money? When that mirror is put up to you, are you seeing an absolute fantasy? Or are you seeing clear reality? I am urging you, examine how God has given into your coffers and which of those 4 buckets Have you been contributing the assets that God has placed into your hands? With that, I think I could take questions. That's it. I think I could take questions.
All right. How many of you have enjoyed the seminar? I surely did. I surely did. Thank you so much, Mr. Davis. We appreciated it. And please do not forget, remember the QR code that we scanned in the beginning? In fact, let me see if I can bring it up still. I don't know. Second slide. Let me try my best here. All right. Second slide. Here it is. Just want to put it on the screen so that each of you could scan and submit your question now or once you go home. It's not the one about lazy money. All presentations? Okay, here it is. Got it. Let's see if it will come out. Current slide. Seems to be off.
Oh, you got to actually, oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening before.
Okay.
But go ahead now.
All right. So while he'll be helping me to put it on the screen, feel free to submit the questions in the QR code that we scanned in the beginning so that we can, try to help you in getting more financially educated and also stable if there is, issues that or situations that need that intervention. One other thing is you have received the evaluation in the beginning, and please fill that in so that we may know how to improve our future seminars as well. And if you have any bottle that you have, drink water or juice or any paper that you used, please, just before you leave, you can just put it in the trash so that we can keep this place clean and neat. Now, before we go, I want to tell you about upcoming events. You heard different presentations about ministries and things that we do, and we just wanted to remind you a couple of things that you may be interested at. I'm sure, as many of you said, you enjoyed the financial seminar today. Our next financial seminar is going to be November 3. Which day? November 3, that's correct, at the Hawk Farmington Hills Community Center. Questions, you can also say under your question, I would like to get more information on that as well. Our next plant-based cooking seminar is going to be on September 25 or 25th at 3 p.m. September 25th at 3 p.m. And we're going to have our grief share sessions helping, how to deal and cope with grief and how to experience, great living again after, a great loss. And that's going to be in October 10 at 2 p.m. And then our health fair, where we're going to be offering massage, mobility screening, health screenings as well, medical screenings like health, weight, and BMI, blood pressure. We're also going to get wellness counseling, dental screenings, and nutritional, dental health, nutritional care as well, and much more. That's going to be in October 2nd from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be in a couple of weeks, October 2nd, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's pretty much all we have. And again, there's the QR code on the screen. You can just go into the camera on your phone, point it to the screen. It's going to take you to the page, and you can feel free to submit your question. All right, before we go, I just want to invite you, to close your eyes as we pray. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for today. Thank you that we're able to be out here and just learning more about finances. And we saw that you truly desire that we prosper in all things, that we should be responsible with the life and the means that you've provided for us. Thank you, Lord, that we have Mr. Davis and Sister Wendy to help us, to counsel and guide us in this process so that we all can experience great stability, financial stability, and financial peace as well. Please be with us as we go back to our respective places. Keep us safe until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much, and see you next time.